New arguments could be brought forward.
The problem is not whether the government is afraid of an international inquiry or not. The problem is that after a 30-year war, no country which fought a war within its own borders against a terrorist foe and prevailed has submitted itself to an international inquiry by powers which have been bombing Vietnam using Agent Orange and have engaged in the rankest destruction possible throughout the third world. It's not a question of being afraid. It's a question of having a straight spine. It's a question of having national dignity. It's a question of defending your national sovereignty. It's a question of having a national identity. When a government, which is headed by somebody who signed a ceasefire agreement with one of the world's prime terrorists without bringing it to the cabinet, and then, according to Professor Paul Moorcroft, a former senior military instructor at Sanders, prevented the Sri Lankan Special Forces from assassinating Prabhakaran on Christmas Day in 2001, is in charge of matters, then you must pardon me for being somewhat apprehensive. So, in terms of the 100 days, there are good things, but the bad outweigh the good. And in terms of national sovereignty, in terms of national security, I find this situation very distressing. The removal of camps should not be in a manner that takes us back to the pre-war situation. A genocide resolution of 11 pages was passed by Chief Minister Vigneshwaran, and there's not a single political price, nothing that he has had to pay. He gave this to Jeffrey Feltman, the senior United Nations political official, to visit Sri Lanka. Now, the G word has been introduced into the bloodstream, into the international community by the Northern Provincial Council. Chief Minister Vigneshwaran didn't dare do this when Mahinda Rajapaksa was president last year. Why bring a genocide resolution and pass it under a new administration? And what is the new administration doing about it? Not one political rebuttal of this kind of outrageous situation. So I would say it's 100 days of the positives, relaxation, liberalization, which you find when any new government is elected, but it's also 100 days of retrenchment in terms of our external relations. We have gone too far in the opposite direction. We have lost our sense of national dignity. We have allowed the escalation of the problem of reconciliation, because now in the north there's a sense that foreign leaders are on Sri Lanka's case and they're saying, let's do federalism, why don't you go beyond the 13th Amendment? David Cameron says, we are committed, Sri Lanka should cooperate fully with the international inquiry. Nobody answers on behalf of Sri Lanka. John Kerry says the Sri Lankans waged 30 years of war against the Tamils, not a hum from Mangala Samaraveera. So in terms of national dignity and even in terms of ethnic reconciliation, we are now on the back foot. I find it morally outrageous that a Prime Minister who signed a CFA with the Tigers without showing the cabinet, that pulled off the LRRP team that was about to assassinate Prabhakaran, that raided the Millennium City in Aturugiriya, is able to posture as somehow more moral than the former president who liberated us from the Tigers. Now, Iran says that they are clearing up the mess. No, 30 years of war, only 4 years of Mahinda Rajapaksa's presidency, and he won that war. He cleared up the mess that Chandrika Baranayaka and Ranil Wickremesinghe and the UNP governments left him. That's what has happened. And I think it's morally outrageous for an unelected government headed by somebody who, if this were Europe, would have been facing a tribunal for treason, is on a witch hunt against those who saved the country from secession.